This is the War Room presented by the Sideline Journal. The film doesn't lie. Let's get to work. Welcome to the Sideline Journal. This is Coach Wrather, the brain behind the scene. And I just want to introduce myself. You know, I've been coaching college football now for 6 years. I've been a fan of the game for 15 years. And it has always been my dream to do some sports analysis over the NFL. And we're going to make this dream a reality today. So who I have joining with me is my pledge brother, fraternity brother from college. Just as important to understanding the NFL draft, as he's helped me formulate a lot of my takes, is Liam Carr.
What's up, everybody? My name is Liam Carr. Huge, avid Packer fan. Was born in the GB. Played a semester of collegiate football. Worked for PFF for a summer. Consider myself a pretty good sports analyst. I'm just a sports fan, but I love football the most. So I'm ready to go, Mason, if you're ready.
Hell yeah. So, I mean, today what we've been talking about a lot leading up to this draft is, you know, kind of what we're looking for in the first round. You know, the chatter that I've been hearing and what I saw through my own analysis is there's not a lot of first round grades out there. What I've heard is that there's really truly through the players 14 first round grades. So, you know, the player that we're going to start drafting at pick 16, 17 is going to be equivalent to the draft pick you'll pick around pick 50, pick 51.
I agree with you completely. I mean, the drop-off between the quarterbacks alone. Take each position, and like those first two compared to the rest is a big drop-off. And like the guys you can get, the third guy that you can get, you know, I think is pretty comparable to that seventh, eighth, whether you're talking wide receiver or QB, cornerback. It's a very different draft, and I don't know if you mind me butting in right here, but I think it has to do a lot with the supply and demand. Simple economic lesson. You know, look how many quarterbacks were taken last year. All right, 6 in the first 12.
Hell yeah.
So that's why we have this big quarterback controversy right now.
It's a massive controversy. And, you know, I think you have a pretty bold take about that guy that was taken 10th overall at the Vikings.
I do. Yeah, I'm not going to say too much right now, but if the Vikings select a quarterback, I would not be surprised. I don't know who they want there. They only have 2 on the roster right now, so keep an eye on that.
It is a pretty wild take, and I think you make a good point there. You know, I kind of highlighted on a post earlier this week about how I think positional draft value is not going to be important in this draft because there's only so many blue chip prospects they can get. And you hit it on the head with the quarterback position because Kirk Cousins is still looking to be traded. Aaron Rodgers, Hall of Fame quarterback, still a free agent. And I think their situations are waiting on these draft dominoes to fall, and I think the way that they're going to fall as quarterbacks are not going to be a highlight of this draft. So, I mean, really,
that's why ESPN can't stop talking about Sheduer and Cam. It's because, you know, they want to talk about the quarterbacks, but really compared to other years, how great do they stack up? And that's why it's such a big controversy. It's also because these teams don't need them right now. Most of the teams, there's like 2 or 3 teams that could use a quarterback maybe right now, but the rest there's a few that are looking for long term, and then everybody else is not even close to looking for a quarterback. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think that a lot of the narratives around this draft are trying to force the quarterback issue. And I mean, we can go back to recent drafts when it wasn't there, like with Will Levis and Malik Willis. You know, with Will Levis's year, they tried to push and say he was going to be a first-round quarterback, and he sat in the green room and didn't get picked in the second round. And, I mean, it sucks for the Titans because actually both those quarterbacks, they were drafted back-to-back years by the Titans, and I kind of hate it for them because here they are at the number 1 overall pick, and I have Cam Ward ranked as the 25th draft prospect, and that looks where the tea leaves are going.
Hey, I mean, I've seen a ton of mock drafts from all these analysts too, and they have Cam pretty far back. But guess what? Because the Titans have a need right here, because they don't take care of other stuff, we're here again talking about quarterbacks for the Titans. So,
am I correct in assuming that's going to be your first pick?
We want to get into that. I'm ready.
I'm ready if you're ready.
All right, so, I mean, looking at the Titans, who has they need a quarterback, and I think they're going to go with Cam. Everybody knows they're going to go with Cam because of his potential. He has the highest ceiling in this draft, definitely for quarterbacks, but he has such a high ceiling potential that it's crazy to pass him up. His arm strength is elite. His playmaking ability, we've all seen that. That's some of his best highlights. So they have a need for this, and that's why I think Cam will be the first off the board.
Yeah, I agree 100%. What I think is pretty special about him as a player is, his story. He started out as a zero-star player, walked on to Incarnate Word, went there, transferred to Washington State, balled out, went to Miami, balled out. And it's actually, I have a pretty personal story with him. The offensive coordinator at the college that I worked for, he was in the recruiting department at Texas State back when he was trying to find a FCS, FBS program to walk on. And they said he showed up probably about 185, 190 pounds. This is a scrawny, stringy dude, but he can rip the football. And now you look up 5-6 years later, and he's the projected first overall pick. And he's an incredible story, and I think he's oozing potential, but he doesn't exhibit traits that are needed for the quarterback position in the NFL. I don't think that he operates in structure very well. His feet scare me. Your feet kind of determine where accuracy.
He doesn't move.
Yeah, he doesn't move. You've seen all the TikTok highlight clips of him just standing there and throwing it, but what's scary is he does that on a lot of what should be routine throws. So I think that it's a lottery ticket that the Titans are selecting here.
Look, like I said, he has a high ceiling. He has a lot of potential. I think you said that he's kind of raw. I'm not expecting him first year, especially with the Titans rebuild and what else they need. I'm not expecting him to just have a phenomenal year like Jaden Daniels and CJ Stroud their rookie year. I'm thinking definitely sophomore season, 3, 4, 5 years, we could be seeing a lot of Cam Ward highlight reels in the NFL.
Absolutely. Well, and then I guess this is a good place to kind of segue into the second pick. And, I have Abdul Carter as my number one player. And I would have loved for the Browns to pair him up with Myles Garrett, but I think they're going to go with the Heisman winner of the college season, Travis Hunter.
I think he's the best guy in the class. He's insane. How much do they need an edge rusher compared to a cornerback? See, that's where it starts to get tricky. And also, supposedly he's going to play wide receiver, and the Browns also need a wide receiver. So is Travis the perfect fit here? I think for him, yes. Cleveland, it's such a tough choice. Who to pick?
It absolutely is. I mean, that's the deal that GMs struggle with. I would struggle with as the GM in their position is positional value, the talent, and where you're picking. I do think what's unique about the Browns is that it's going to allow Travis Hunter to, make his home playing wide receiver. They've got, an all-pro corner in Denzel Ward on a massive contract. They've got 2 first-round picks at corner in Martin Emerson and Greg Newsome on big contracts. And so I think that Andrew Berry's thought process is I'm going to take the most athletic athlete in the draft that we've maybe seen in 5 to 10 years, and I'm going to stick him at wide receiver, hope Joe Flacco can throw him some passes, and figure the rest of the draft out.
I agree with you. He's such a phenomenal athlete. But here's where I'm going to throw in some stats and throw ESPN under the bus. Because I see Travis definitely playing cornerback first. When I was listening to Mel Kiper today and Adam Schefter and Greeny, they were talking about how he's going to be such a good wide receiver. 40% of his touchdowns, 40% of his 15 touchdowns came in garbage time against OSU and against an FCS team. So, I think that they stat padded a lot. How good of a wide receiver. He's a great athlete, but I think he's going to play corner a lot more than wide receiver. So don't expect to see him catching the ball as much on offense, and I think he'll be a good lock-up corner with Denzel Ward on the other side.
Absolutely, and I mean, that's my draft evaluation of him. Is he's a defensive back that's such a great athlete that they put him out there at wide receiver. I think it's going to be exciting to see what the Browns decide to do. I think they need talent on both sides of the ball, and really, they're in a hole until they can get out of the Deshaun Watson contract. So I think it's an exciting pick there. and I'm excited to see what's going to happen with it.
Oh, for sure. I'm going to take it, and we're going to go to the Giants with the third pick. And, I mean, we both said it before. The number one player in the draft, Abdul Carter. The guy is the strength of a nose tackle with the speed of an outside linebacker, and, you know, he fits perfectly with the edge. He is going to bring so much pressure to the Giants' defense with Thibodeau and Dexter Lawrence. I mean, they can run a 3-4 defense for the entire year and not have to worry about, the quarterback scrambling or the run that much. I'm being a little dramatic there. But that front line should be the best in the NFL.
If they end up with what I think is the best player in the draft at that position, they're going to have to walk away being happy. I mean, with what they did at the quarterback position in free agency, the way that they're trying to build their team through the trenches, I think it's an excellent pick. I do think, pairing him up with Brian Burns and Sexy Dexy, I want to see what happens with Thibodeau. They've already declined his fifth-year option. Are they going to trade him draft night? Are they going to keep him? So I do think if they keep him, and what they do is do what the Cowboys did first season with Micah Parsons, linebacker from Penn State. Connection there, wearing number 11. I don't know. Yep. If they do it, what they did there, where they line him up and play him at middle linebacker and play him in packages off the edge, which he has experience doing, this is what he did until this season, I think it would be a very scary defense to play against. And that's where the Giants, when they win their Super Bowls, that's what they've kind of majored off of, is their pass rush and defense.
Yeah, I agree with you. And what you said first about the quarterbacks, they signed Russ and Jameis, all right? Yeah. A lot of people have Sheduer going to the Giants. I don't really see that, especially with the commitment they just made. I know they're old quarterbacks, so they're looking for a long-term, solution to their problem, but I just don't see them picking in the first round of this draft a quarterback. So I think they go Abdul Carter to really beef up that defense.
Yeah, I think it's a great pick, and I mean, I think the first 3 picks of this draft are kind of set in stone, and this is kind of where the fireworks start. And who I have the Patriots taking with the 4th overall pick is my number 1 offensive lineman, Will Campbell.
Okay, I didn't know who you were going to go with right there, because that Mizzou guy, Membo, he's pretty good too, but I think Will Campbell is the solid. I think he has a lot of experience. He seems incredibly smart. I think you said it best in Chalk Talk. Make sure you guys go check out that video Mason did. It's very good. Just Will Campbell definitely has experience against some edge rushers that are in this year's draft as well. And I think the edge rushers in this draft are pretty deep and solid. So the Patriots selecting that tells you they want to protect Drake May. They picked up Stephon Diggs, but he won't be ready till halfway, maybe towards the end. But I think they got a solid start for the Patriots rebuild.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's the story of this draft. Everyone wants to kind of beat down on this class's wide receivers because there's no like Malik Neighbors or Brian Thomas, but I do think that that guy from Arizona is pretty special. But it's the same story with this draft. The depth at the wide receiver position, there's a lot of guys that I have 2nd, 3rd round grades on, and early 2nd, early 3rd, and you can pick up the same similar guy you'd get in the 1st round at this pick as you will then. I think the offensive line drop-off after Will Campbell is more significant than people are going to let on. They made this big, massive deal about arm size at the Combine. Me as a coach, turn on the tape, watch the way he's played.
What can they do with it?
He is an elite offensive lineman for the way he plays with length, the way he plays with leverage, the knowledge he has of the game. And the Patriots have holes all throughout their offensive line. I think Will Campbell is a safe place to take because if he can't play tackle, you can bump him into guard. If you start him out at guard, just like the Chiefs did with Joe Thuney, there's injury at tackle, you can bump him out to tackle. I think he's a special prospect at the position, and I think if the Patriots are going to sit and pick at 4, that's the best that they can do with what their needs are.
Look, I'm not going to be mad with a lot of these teams selecting an offensive tackle, guard, or center in the 1st round. I think this is the most important part of the draft is to choose them. You want to get the best of the best. How do you build a good team? You got to start in the trenches, offensive line, defensive line. And so if the Patriots select Will Campbell right here, nobody's going to be mad.
Absolutely.
All right. Hey, with Jacksonville, let's move on there. New head coach, new era down there for the Jaguars. This is, after the top three, it starts to get a little crazy right now. I think Jacksonville doesn't really know what they want. I saw today a report came out that they might look at Ashton Jeanty.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking they have Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby.
I know, but hey, in Etienne, fifth year option, you never know. That's a question. Yeah. They declined it.
Yeah, no. Do they want to pass up on Jeanty? They have a lot of holes. They need wide receivers, but I don't think they need to pick a wide receiver at the 5th spot. Like I said earlier about the trenches, I think right here they go Mason Graham. Solid guy from Michigan. I mean, he's just under 300 pounds. Huge dude. Game record. He can fill up the gaps. He's everything you want in a D tackle.
Yeah, absolutely. I have no issue with the pick here. My side of it with Mason Graham and what scares me is he is a finesse player at the 3 tech position and defensive line. And I mean, Aaron Donald, he was a finesse player. He learned how to convert his speed to power, and he became one of the best defensive players ever. But that's what made Aaron Donald fall in the draft. And every defensive lineman is an Aaron Donald. I'm curious to see how Mason translates to the NFL, just because he doesn't necessarily have an elite size. I love his motor. I love his tape. My question is just the power that he can generate. And I have Ashton Jeanty graded as the 3rd best player in the draft. So, I mean, I think it's wild if the Jags went there. I would understand if they did, and I think if they come away with Mason Graham here or Ashton Jeanty, that new Jags GM is going to be happy with whatever player they come away with.
Yeah, and I think Graham's a great pick here, too. I mean, when I was breaking down the film on him against Ohio State, they were running like a zone run to the left, and Mason Graham had the guard and the tackle on him. The tight end comes in and gives him a bump, and Mason Graham stood his ground. He just keeps on going with the flow. One-arm tackles, the Ohio State running back, that's here, too, Travion Hendrickson. The strength, I don't think he has a problem with the strength at all. So that's why I think that he's going to go 5th to the Jaguars.
I like it. And here we are with the 6th pick. And I have the Raiders setting a tone for the way they want to build this team. And I'm going from the guy from Boise State who should have been the Heisman winner, Ashton Jeanty.
I 100% agree right here. Did you see the press conference with Pete Carroll and the GM?
Oh, yeah.
I think they're going. They want him too. I mean, who's that running back right now? Is it
Samir White, I believe.
Samir White?
Yeah.
They're going to need to beef that up.
My horrible 4th round pick in fantasy that I ended up dropping after week 6. So, yeah, Samir White, boys. Shout out.
Hey, he'll bounce back. But is Jeanty going to have a season? Is he going to have like a repeat season like he just did at Boise State? I don't know. The Raiders have a lot of other holes they need to fill too, especially at the O-line. I think Jeanty's going to be pretty good. Yeah, I mean, he has some elite abilities, and the Raiders are going to make a good pick here. But don't give him expectations that everybody else is giving him. I saw ESPN breaking down saying that his ceiling is Walter Payton and his floor is LaDainian Tomlinson. 2 Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
Expectations are insane.
That's absolutely crazy. I mean, the beauty of this pick is how simple it is for Pete Carroll. He wants to run the football. He wants to play great defense. He wants to run a play-action scheme with Chip Kelly. And he wants to return Raiders football to a tough physical brand. And I think Ashton Jeanty put it best in his player op-ed. He said, draft a guy that you can't tackle. He sits at 5'9", 210 pounds. He runs a 4.5 40. His speed to power is ridiculous. His contact courage is insane. And I love him as a player. I love him as a person. I love him as a fit for what the Raiders are trying to build. And in the coaching profession, always would talk about running backs and offensive line. Offensive line for your run game, they set the floor. Ashton Jeanty sets the ceiling. And, according to PFF, the Raiders' offensive line, they averaged 3 yards blocked in their base run game before contact. But their running backs were ranked 32nd with minus 0.4 yards adjusted per play, meaning their running backs were so bad that they actually lost yardage that their O-line was blocking. So I think if you put Ashton, Jeanty into that situation, you have not necessarily an elite offensive line, but a solid enough offensive line. I think that's going to give Geno Smith the room needed for that offensive attack to start to flow, and Pete Carroll can build the brand of football that he wants to have.
Couldn't have said it better.
Nice.
All right, let's move on to the 7th.
Yeah.
With the New York Jets. And here's, some people might call me crazy, but I'm looking at the Jets roster right now.
Mm-hmm.
And, they just got rid of Tyler Conklin. And I'm looking at Jeremy Ruckert as their starting tight end right now. I know that they need an offensive lineman, probably. And I'm looking at Armand right now. But I think that the Jets right here go with Tyler Warren.
Whoa! That is... I don't hate the pick. I have Tyler Warren as a top 5... No, I have him at 6, top 6 ranked player. And, I love him as a player, and I think that is a shocker of the draft right there.
Look, he's a Swiss Army knife. He can do it all on offense. We saw it at Penn State. He's 6'6".
260. 6'6", 260.
Yeah, Tyler Warren, I think he's a freak athlete too. Julio Jones was 6'3", and Calvin Johnson was 6'5". I'm not comparing him to them. I'm comparing the height, just to let you know how tall he is. This guy, he can block pretty well. So I'm envisioning him, in an I formation at the goal line. He goes down in 3-point stance. The defense, it doesn't help out that they don't know what he's going to do. And he's dangerous doing both. I think the new head coach of the Jets, he's coming from a place where Ben Johnson was.
Yeah.
I think he might have a little Ben Johnson spice in his offense. He might take a little bit of that. And I think they're going to use him pretty well.
No, absolutely. Like I said, I don't hate the pick. And Tyler Warren, 6'6", 260. He's a complete player. He can block. He can run. You line him up Wildcat quarterbacks. This is what he played in high school. He reminds me of a young Rob Gronkowski. Crazy name to throw out there, but that to me was the last complete special tight end in the league. And I'm excited to see Tyler Warren and where he ends up. I don't hate the pick at all.
I think if we want to talk fantasy real quick, I don't know where he's going to go, honestly. But I think his fantasy value depends entirely on the offensive coordinator and the head coach and how they use him. Because if he goes to someplace like, who was the head coach for the Falcons when they drafted Pitts?
Arthur Smith.
Didn't use tight ends very well. And then somebody else like Mike McCarthy didn't use tight ends very well.
Sure.
He goes to someplace like a Ben Johnson, like I think a Pete Carroll, or even who's in Denver right now? Sean Payton. Those guys could use him great. Yeah. And I think the Jets are a great fit for Tyler Warren.
No, absolutely. I don't hate it. It's starting to grow on me the more I look at it. And I think it sets up the draft board pretty interestingly for the rest of it. And kind of with the 8th pick, I've had this guy pinhole to the Patriots for a while. I love his tape. I think he fits the culture and the history they have at the position. And I'm going with Jalen Walker out of Georgia. And the reasoning behind the pick. So this is a history lesson for you youngins out there. The history of the position for the Panthers, they had a great linebacker named Luke Kuechly, and before Luke Kuechly, and there's a guy named Thomas Davis Sr. He played for 16 years in the box, last back half with Luke Kuechly, and he kind of developed Luke Kuechly and the player he's going to be. And Jalen Walker's tape screams for me who Thomas Davis was. He is a in-the-box linebacker who can play the flats in the zone and can rush the passer on 3rd down. And that's what he did at Georgia. They converted him from an edge rusher into that off-ball type role. And I think he fits exactly the scheme that Azairo Vera runs for the Panthers, and I think he adds a special dynamic to their defense.
I agree with everything you said right there. I think Jalen Walker, when I was watching film on him, it looked like he can read the play instantly. As soon as it was snapped, it looked like he knew where the ball was going and he would beat everybody there. He applies pressure so well. Dude's just a dog, and he's exactly the kind of guy you would want leading the defense at the linebacker spot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, who do you got them picking at number 9?
Man, I got with the Saints. This is the biggest. I have no idea what the Saints are doing here at the pick 9. You know, it comes out a week or two ago that Derek Carr might be out for the entire season with a shoulder injury. It's a rattler, yes. And he, you know, I'm rooting for him, hope he does well, but he didn't show a whole lot. So I don't know what their long-term solution with quarterback is. And I don't think they select a quarterback right now. In honesty, if they trade this pick, they have 6 picks in the first 131. All right, so I'm kind of curious to see what if they're like, all right, we'll trade this 9 for 2 more and have maybe, you know, 7 or 8 picks in the first 130. I can see that. They gotta, you know, shop around some trades, see where they can get the best deal, maybe get like a late first, add a second or a third.
You mocking a trade?
Exactly.
You have a mock trade?
I don't know exactly right now.
Whoa.
I'm just saying look out for that on draft day. But I think right here they're going to go with Armand Membo, which is a steal, I think, at 9.
Absolutely. I have him, you know, rated as the top true offensive tackle after Will Campbell. And I love the pick here. I think that it fits exactly with their needs with Ryan Ramczyk retiring. But I know the crowd is going to be screaming, why not Sheduer? Why not Showtime? Why not bring him down to the Bayou?
Yeah, I don't understand that one. Hey, but Armand had in 2,000 snaps, about 2,000 snaps, he only let up 3 sacks. And that's from PFF, so they also said that Lane Johnson didn't give up a sack last season, which he did with Rashawn Gary week 1. You can debate about that. But, I don't know, numbers like that's nice, and it's something you can trust. I think whoever's quarterback at the Saints next year, they can definitely trust this guy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, the job that you're tasked with is you pick the best player and try to match them to the need that you have. And I think the Saints are walking away here with a great player that's going to be able to protect either side of the line for the next 5 to 10 years. I do think that's going to send some shockwaves down the league with that pick. They didn't reach on quarterback. So how far is the fall going to be for Sheduer?
We'll see.
Guess we'll see.
We'll see.
Well, to round out the top 10 here with the next pick, I have what shouldn't really be a shocker, but it's going to be a shocker for a lot of people. I have them taking a running back from UNC, Omarion Hampton.
I think that's a solid pick. I mean, 2,000 all-purpose yards, 17 touchdowns. He has great size, speed. His breaking away speed is something debatable. But I think he's a great fit here. They have DeAndre Swift still, no?
Yeah, they still have DeAndre Swift, but I mean, the reason that I'm choosing this pick is the way Ben Johnson builds his offense. You know, a couple years ago, he was a young new OC for the Lions, and the Lions were sitting with the 6th overall pick, and they just signed their second back to a pretty big contract, and everyone's like, there's no way they're going to go running back. They trade down a couple spots, they're sitting at 12, and they take that special guy from Alabama, Jahmyr Gibbs, and they run a 2-headed monster out of the backfield there at the Lions. And I think Ben Johnson is going to try to replicate that with the Bears, because the way that he builds his offense is he looks at position groups as pods, as barrels. So in his one barrel, he's going to have DeAndre Swift and who I think Omarion Hampton. In his second group, he's going to have Roschon Johnson and Khalil Herbert. He runs the football so much, he's going to be able to rotate backs through. But the reason I think he's going to take Omarion Hampton is I don't think Omarion Hampton is that far away from being as talented as Ashton Jeanty. Wild take, I know. But Omarion Hampton, 6'2", 210 pounds, the frame that he packs in with the burst and contact courage that he has, I think he's a very exciting player. I know that Sean Payton down in Denver was trying desperately to trade up for him, and I think with the way the board fell and him falling to the Bears at 10, it's a match made in heaven for me.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking about, Ben Johnson in Chicago now. He had Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. And, the NFL started branding that it was Knuckles and Sonic.
Hell yeah.
I see Hampton as Knuckles and Swift as Sonic. Hampton's got a great size. I think he's going to be the workhorse, and I think Swift is going to be, the guy to get around the corner to the sideline quick. So, yep, I think this is a solid pick for Chicago.
Absolutely. All right, well, we got the first 10 picks here in the draft. I got to say, I think the hottest draft pick here is got to be Mason Graham. I love him as a player, but I just don't think he's going to end up being the 5th overall pick.
Man, Jacksonville has so many decisions to make right here. I honestly think it's a scary pick for them because I think they might go Ashton Jeanty. They might want to go and get Tet from Arizona because they need some wide receivers. And some people say Tyler Warren as a tight end. I don't think Tyler Warren, because they've talked about their 3rd year out of Penn State, Benton Strange. They talk about him pretty well. I think he's going to be the guy they go with. So that's why I went with the D lineman here.
Yeah, that makes sense.
My hot take here is Carolina selecting Jalen Walker. I don't think Jalen Walker is going to be the second edge rusher off the board. I mean, I think this class is pretty stacked. Michael Williams, Shamar Stewart, and Mike Green, I think they're pretty good too. So that's my hot take.
I think the fit there is what I love for it, but maybe I'm forcing it there. If they ended up with Tet, Will Johnson, or if Mason Graham falls down to him, or even if they went Mike Green, that guy out of Marshall, I would be okay with all the picks. Maybe I'm just trying to force fit here, but I love Jalen Walker's tape, and I think he'll fit in great there. So what I want to know, though, is what your hot team, rising team out of the draft this season is going to be.
Staying in the top 10, I'm looking at the Carolina Panthers. I think their division is one of the weaker ones, and usually they're part of the reason, but I think they're going to be strong this year. The Saints, I don't see the Saints doing too well this year. They got so many controversies going on with who's going to be playing quarterback. And I don't know, their wide receivers, is Chris Olave all right? What's going on? And their defense is just pretty mediocre. So I think they're going to be the bottom. The Falcons, who's going to be their quarterback? They have a really expensive old quarterback, and they have a pretty good young quarterback. What are they going to do? Are they going to swap them in and out? That's not good for a team. I think the Falcons are going to be pretty mediocre. Carolina, Bryce Young revenge season. They finally got the pieces around him. I think they'll go wide receiver later in the draft. They're going to get him some weapons. The defense is going to get together. I think they're going to go 9-8. They're not going to get 10 wins. They're going to go 9-8. Playoffs is going to be really tough. The other parts of the NFC are stronger, so I don't know if they'll make it in, but they're going to have a great season, and it's going to look great for them.
I love it. I'd be so excited if that happened. I love Bryce Young as a person. I'm so glad he came along as a quarterback, and I hope it's some exciting times for those guys down in Carolina.
What's your hot take? What's your hot team?
I've got to say, they're also in the top 10, and sorry that they had to get rid of your guy from Green Bay, but I think the Jets are going to be on a revenge season. I love the hire that they made with Aaron Glenn. He's been a great assistant throughout the league. I loved his style of defense with the Lions, and I think he made the best he could out of a bad situation with the Lions. With all the injuries they had, I don't think he had the players to run his personnel, but the Jets, what I love about the Jets is if you look through their roster, I mean, really, they don't have a ton of holes. They've just had such incompetent coaching, such bad ownership for such a long time. I don't think that they've been able to actually coalesce and build around the young talent they have. Why I love the hire of Aaron Glenn is he's like Dan Campbell. He's going to be a culture-setting head coach. He's going to come in and he is going to have a plan and he's going to decide how to maximize young talent. And I think the style of football he's going to try to build with Justin Fields, building through the trenches, running the ball with Braylon Walker and Breece Hall and playing great defense, I think that the Jets are going to surprise a lot of teams with being a very tough out and quickly getting back, not maybe to playoff contention, but being a respectable team, playing some respectable football. And you might look up and the Jets could be 8-9, 9-8, and sniffing around that 7th seed.
And the fans would be happy with that.
Absolutely. Well, kind of moving on, who are you going to take here with the 11th pick?
Oh, man, with the 11th pick, the 49ers, they have, I think, a lot of stuff they have to fill in. They have some aging players on their team. Looking at the prospects right now, man, I don't know. I think the best hole to fill might be the cornerback, the secondary, and I really like Will Johnson. 6'2", 200 pounds. He can play just fine on an island. I would trust him. I don't think much is getting past him.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the pick. He's my number one rated corner. I do know there's some injury concerns and some character concerns from his pre-medical combine interviews, but I see it the same way as Derek Stingley. Derek Stingley for the Texans, his freshman and sophomore years were elite, much, much better than, his junior year after LSU wasn't really competing. I think it's the same story for Will Johnson. You go turn on the national championship winning Michigan team, and that guy was like Revis Island. He was locked down, could not throw the football on him. But it's going to be the question, what kind of player is he? Because, this past season, Michigan's not necessarily in contention, and he's lagging at times, and you're questioning his commitment. So I kind of like the pick, but I can also understand the controversy behind it.
Yeah, he also only had like 12 solo tackles this year. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Was it a good thing because he wasn't letting people catch on him, or was he avoiding contact? You said something about pursuit. Was he that good of pursuing the ball? I don't know. I think he's got a great frame. We've seen when he was on a great team, the Michigan championship team. I thought he was phenomenal. And I think the Niners go with the cornerback here just because, they got to fill in some offensive line. They got to fill in some defensive line. What else? I don't know. But I think they go play it safe and select a solid choice here at 11 with the cornerback.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see it.
Well, Mason, hey, it's your boys.
It is them boys. Shout out. I've been a Cowboys fan for I don't know how long, and makes me sad. We had some pillars of the team retire this season with Tyron Smith and Zach Martin calling their careers. But, offensive line, it scares me. Tyler Guyton doesn't pan out how I hoped. There's some talent left, but I don't know if I love Kelvin Banks here. He scares me with the way he plays technique. And if you watch the Cowboys games, what you know is they have been dying for any sort of receiving threat, a pulse, anybody living outside of CeeDee Lamb. And I'm looking at a guy from Arizona that I think is a top 10 player in the draft, and he's sitting here at 12. He provides something that CeeDee Lamb doesn't, a big go-to vertical downfield threat, and I'm going with Tetairoa McMillan from Arizona.
Yeah, I love the pick. I mean, is it going to help the Cowboys with everything else? No, they still got a lot of other problems. I've been saying that. But it's going to really help their offense. I mean, Jerry Jones is going to like it because he's going to sell a lot of jerseys with this. He reminds me of a Mike Evans. I mean, I like Ted because for the 50-50 balls, I'm betting my money on him. He's such a great frame, great size, great speed, great hands. I think he'd match up nicely against other wide receiver classes that we've had recently. I think he'd be up there pretty good. The guy is a beast.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, he's going to have to make life easier on Dak Prescott. And it's going to be put up or shut up for him because you make him the highest paid quarterback in the league, and he can't stay healthy and win games. Well, it's going to give him no excuse to put points on the board. He's going to have CeeDee Lamb, not one of the highest paid, most dynamic players in the league. You had Tyrone McMillan. They're going to, put up some depth in the offensive line and running back room in the second and third round, and it's going to be showtime for Dak Prescott. And you know what? As a Cowboys fan, I'm at the point with Dak Prescott. We get to week 6, week 7, and he's leading the league in interceptions again. Throw Joe Milton out there, see what he can do.
Yeah, Joe Milton, I mean, what he did in that Patriots game, I would trust him.
Absolutely. Well, enough of my tirade. I want to know who you're going to take with the 13th pick.
The Dolphins, every year, Tua is scrambling for his life, and he's always getting hurt. I don't care what happens on draft night. I don't care if every lineman, if 10 linemen go in the first 10, I do not care. They're still going to pick a lineman no matter what. So here I'm just going to choose the best available according to ADP. I'm going to go Kelvin Banks here. They need to beef up that line. They need just something to protect Tua. They need somebody to come in and help them out. So that's where I'm going to go, offensive line here.
Absolutely. So the slide and the fall for Kelvin Banks ends, going into the draft process, a lot of people had him as a top 5 pick, then he became a top 10 pick, now he's becoming an early first round, and the fall ends, and it's kind of reminiscent of a guy that the Miami Dolphins picked close to 8-9 years ago with Laramie Tunsil. They ended his draft day slide. His was for different reasons, but Kelvin Banks finds a home for him. And, Teron Armstead, don't know if he's going to retire or come back yet, and they've got a gaping hole that he fills.
Oh, yeah. Who are you going to go with the Colts here, man?
Well,
Coach?
For the Colts, AR-15, what are they going to do there? Are they sold on him? Do they take a quarterback here? Does Sheduer Sanders go to the Colts at 14? Do they ride it out with AR-15 for another year? Do they want to build the trenches up again? That's aging in the interior. They want to add a dynamic threat. They've got no one there at tight end. The Colts scare me for a lot of reasons. A lot of people say that they're 1 or 2 pieces away. I think that they've been in survival mode for so long too. They've been drafting, we're just going to take this guy, we're going to take this guy. And they're holding on to an era that's past them since Andrew Luck retired. They built a team to win with Andrew Luck retires. So then what are you going to do? You've got a team, but you've got no answer quarterback, and now you're trying to figure out that answer, and your answers all around them are starting to age and not be answers anymore. I think what they're going to do with the way this board's fallen is they're going to go with a safe pick, a guy that I have rated top 10. I think he's going to go a lot sooner than a lot of people expect, and it's Colston Loveland, the tight end out of Michigan.
Yeah, I have no idea where the Colts are doing. You said they've been in scramble mode, survival mode ever since Andrew Luck. Look what they've done. They went Matt Ryan, Phillip Rivers, Joe Flacco. 3 aging veteran quarterbacks back to back to back. They don't have a solution there. I think the AR-15 predicament really scares them. I don't think they're going to go quarterback here in the first round. Give him a weapon. Mo Alley Cox isn't bad, but he's not. You don't want him to be the number 1 tight end. I think they got a good receiving core. Alec Pierce, MPJ, and Josh Downs. I think it's pretty solid, but let's get him just one more option, and a guy that has a great frame. He can block, he can pass. I see him kind of like Travis Kelce, just a wide receiver tight end, really.
What's really exciting about him is the way that he breaks out of his stem and creates separation at the second level. He loses no speed. There's no wasted movement. He is a thick, big guy. He's 6'4", 240, but nothing looks slow. Nothing looks out of place. He is a very fluid, smooth route runner, catches the ball great. And I love the idea, again, the same deal that why I wanted to take my pick at 12 with the Cowboys. Give AR-15 no excuses. Surround him with playmakers, ball players at all positions on offense, and see if he can do it. Because if he can't, guess what? You're going to be back in the top 10 again next season trying to find your answer there, but maybe you came away with a great tight end here at this pick. Who do you have at pick 15 for the Falcons?
Man, for the Falcons, I think their defensive line needs some beef. They also need to replace their center. Right here, I'm looking at 3 guys. I'm looking at Michael Williams, Shamar Stewart, and Mike Green. they're all so good. But I think they're going to stick with the kid from Georgia, and they're going to go with Michael Williams.
That is, to me, that's wild.
Really. He's a 6'5", 265. I think he's fast. He has some discipline issues.
Hey, I like him. I like him. I look at Mike Green there, and I can't believe that you let him fall.
I mean, we can maybe reflect what maybe other owners are thinking. I mean, Mike Green has some off-the-field issues, which might make him slide like he is right now. Michael Williams only had 5 sacks. I like stats, but I don't think stats tell the whole story. I think Michael Williams brought a lot of pressure that didn't get recorded. Mike Green has 17 sacks. Yeah, he's phenomenal. I think I think he's going to be the guy they go with right here.
I think, for me, with Michael Williams, his draft evaluation was tough for me. I think at times he's making some splashy plays, but I'm watching him and I'm thinking that he's a product of the system around him and the players that he has around him. But he does exhibit some crazy physical traits. 6'5", 260. I think he ran a 4.65 40 at the combine.
Yeah.
And I don't hate it for the Falcons. The Falcons have a barren wasteland at the defensive line. Raheem Morris, that is his calling card on defense, is trying to generate pressure, and he was unable to do so, and I think that's why the Falcons honestly slid out of the playoffs late in the season, is what their defense was doing. So I do think that you've matched position need with the draft pick. I just know for me, and it's a hot take, it's different in the draft community, I'm not very high on Michael Williams.
Hey, to each their own, and guess what? We'll find out this week.
I guess we will.
Who are you gonna take? Who are you gonna take at the 16th spot for Arizona?
Well, his draft day slide is stopping right here, maybe a pick later than I would have liked, and I'm going with Mike Green of the Thundering Herd from Marshall.
Yeah, I'm going to say it again. 17 sacks. I mean, he led all of college football. He's dominant. He's a headhunter. I mean, he smells blood in the water. He's like a shark. Mike Green is going to do great. He had some off-the-field issues, which is why he transferred out of, I believe it was Virginia, went to Marshall. Still did the same stuff. Sun Belt Player of the Year. This guy, he's going to stop sliding here, and Arizona selecting him is going to help them a lot.
I just think he's a perfect fit in Jonathan Gannon's defense. Pair him up with Josh Sweat that they signed out of free agency. And I just really like the potential that he's shown. He played at Marshall, which is an FBS school out of the Sun Belt Conference, not a Power 4 conference. Like, you turn on that highlight tape against Ohio State and watch him go to work. Watch him go to work against some offensive linemen that are rated to maybe go in the late first, early second round. And it's a clinic tape. It's teach tape. He had 2.5 sacks, 5-6 QB pressures, and I just love the way that he marries his physical traits as a technician. He's got incredible bend off the edge, and I think he's going to be a special player in the league.
I couldn't agree more right there.
Nice. Well, who are you going with the 17th?
I think I had this in my mock draft, my second one.
Yeah.
I think right here in the NFL draft, we will see 3 straight edge rushers going off the board. I don't know which order. I think Mike Green could be first. Michael Williams could be first. And I also think Shamar Stewart could be first. I think Cincinnati, I don't know how many picks they have, but every pick this draft, they should pick a defensive player. Yeah. And I would not be mad about that. Are they going to lose every game 150 to 151 this year? Yeah, if they don't select a bunch of defense.
Are they going to turn Joe Burrow into freaking Dan Marino because he has no defense?
It looks like it. And so right here, if the Bengals don't select, I mean, you can't go wrong with cornerback, but I just think right here, Shamar Stewart, pair him on the side with Trey Hendrickson, who they're not going to pay, it looks like, and who might leave next year or in 2 years. I think Shamar is the smart move to play right here. We're going to get a cornerback later as the Bengals, but right here, edge rusher Shamar Stewart. 3 straight edge rushers, and I think it's a good call.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think you could see a run go on edge players here soon. The only thing I might see them doing is maybe going with the big defensive tackle from Michigan for a big run stopper, or maybe Derek Harmon from Oregon. But I like the pick, and I think you're absolutely right. There could be a run on edge rushers right here, and they've got to think for the future because Hendrickson has said that he's not even going to play unless he gets a new contract. If they're not going to pay him, you might have to draft to replace him.
And then Shamar Stewart right here, I think he'd be not the best replacement, but he is pretty strong. He has good potential, I think. The guy replaced Sam Hubbard, too, who retired.
Yeah, they do.
So that defensive line, I think, might need some. You got to beef it up now.
Yep, I think the draft pick makes sense there for them.
Well, then, I think this one's going to be tougher than it looks. Seattle Seahawks, where are you going?
Man, so this is going to be my pick out of the draft that no one expects. I'm going wide receiver, and I am going Jaden Higgins from Iowa State.
Ooh. Wow. Why are you going Jaden Higgins?
I love this guy. I fell in love with him in the draft process 2-3 months ago, and I think it's been the closest guarded secret in the NFL. This guy is 6'5", 220 pounds, and runs a 4.4 40. That is insane. That is Calvin Johnson-like physical traits. That's Julio Jones physical traits. And people don't look at Iowa State because they weren't high in the Big 12. They run a boring offense. But turn on the tape and watch this guy go to work. He, to me, without a doubt, I was debating on is he better than Tet the more I fall in love with his tape. He is a clinician of a route runner. He has no wasted movement. His stem at the start of his routes, the top of his routes, you're like, that guy's 6'5", are you kidding me? So I think for Sam Darnold, you get a guy like that. It's going to replace DK Metcalf. It's a vertical outside threat. You've got Jackson Smith and Njigba to operate the slot, and I think they're getting exactly what they want. I know a lot of people are trying to force Matthew Golden from Texas up higher, but I don't see the physical traits there. I see a clean, smooth runner. I don't see elite speed. I don't see elite agility. I don't see elite separation. Jaden Higgins, to me, screams and oozes wide receiver one.
Yeah, I mean, you really sold him right there. You're putting him in some elite company with the names you just dropped right there. I mean, the Seahawks, they got rid of, their veteran, beloved Tyler Lockett. They got rid of DK Metcalf. They picked up Cooper Kupp, which is great, but he's kind of old too. He's going to be phenomenal with them. Maybe not phenomenal, but he's going to be great. But they still got to replace another guy. I think this is a great pick for them. Give their offense some more firepower. Why not? I agree with it.
Nice. Well, who do you have the Buccaneers picking with the 19th pick?
Man, I love Tampa Bay. What do they need right now? Cornerback, edge. So the defense, there's one guy that's been sliding down a little bit on my board. He's my second cornerback. He's got some phenomenal speed. He's maybe a little undersized. 5'11", I believe, is fine for a cornerback. I think he's going to be a lockdown in the nickel. I think he's going to help with the speed of the offense. I think that Tampa Bay right here goes Jade Barron.
Hey, I love the pick. Jade Barron, for me, I have him, again, like you said, I have him as the second-rated corner. I have him as the number one nickel. And it goes to my takes. I said positional draft value is dead in this draft. It is best player available. And he is a number one shutdown elite corner out of the nickel. And for the Buccaneers, they need a DB. They need somebody that can line up at safety, roll him down in that rover spot, go line him out at the left field or boundary corners. And Todd Bowles' defense, he screams chaos. He's going to line up multiple people in multiple ways. He's going to run multiple different coverages to match his blitz. And Jade Barron has the speed to line up like he's blitzing like a cat blitz, but then drop to the middle third. I think he is a chess piece that fits the defense. And if he falls to the Buccaneers at 19, I think you're going to see Todd Bowles, which is this big, massive grin, like, ooh, you just gave me a piece that I've been wanting.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, nickelback, I think he's going to be great there at the nickel spot. Do you want to pick a nickel cornerback at your first round? No, that's why I think he has the ability to play some others, but when he does play nickel, I think he's going to be locked down. He's a Jim Thorpe award winner this year, nation's best defensive back. So he's clearly got a ton of talent. He ran a 4.39 40, and he had 46 solo tackles compared to Will Johnson's 12. So although he may be a little undersized compared to Will Johnson, he's not afraid to put his head down and stop a run. So that's why I think the Bucs here go with the cornerback out of Texas.
Yeah, Well, this is going to be my shocker of this is I think for the Broncos, this is where, with the way this draft board has fallen, I think you're going to see a trade here. I think you're going to see the Saints trade back up into the first part of this first round, and take a quarterback and try to leapfrog the Steelers. And who I think the Saints are going to take is going to be the guy out of Colorado, bring him down to the Bayou, his fall ends, Sheduer Sanders.
Wow, I think that would definitely toss up everybody's board with that trade right there. I mean, the Broncos, I think they're satisfied with Bo Nix. They have a pretty good start. I think, like how we talked about in the beginning, those guys that are like the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, I think the difference between their talent is pretty small. So why not? Why not pick up maybe 1 or 2 draft picks later, let the Saints get this one?
Well, and the way I'm looking at it is I know the Broncos, the story out of the draft is they want one of the 2 tight ends or one of the 2 running backs out of the first round. They want either Jeanty or Hampton or Warren or Loveland. And what sucks is how this fell, none of them are on the board. And I think that they're going to trade back, try to pick up some draft capital, so that way they can take a position that Sean Payton wants to use to make life easier on Bo Nix. And where I think this trade would play out is, I think the Saints would have to trade their second and fourth round picks next year, and then a conditional pick next year based on however much snap Sheduer plays of a second, where it's conditional to be a first round pick. So the Broncos could pick up a high draft pick next season, save a little bit of money by not having to pay the 5th-year option, pick up some extra draft capital in a very depth-filled draft. And for the Saints, they're able to get the 5th-year option on a quarterback in case they want to use it to later down the road. And I think what Sheduer does at this draft slot is you pair him up with an elite tackle they took at 9, and it lets Sheduer no pressure to have to be a top 10 quarterback draft pick. He's just a first round draft pick. And maybe he doesn't start right away. Maybe they roll with Spencer Rattler out there, throw him into the fire. I just think this gives a good situation, if there is a situation out there, for Sheduer to develop, and I think it ends the draft day slide.
Yeah, and for Denver, I have them staying right there and picking a wide receiver like Luther or Emeka. But now, I mean, like, looking at the other wide receivers on the board, they can still get Jack Beck, Jalen Royals, Kyle Williams, Torrey Horton, Isaiah Bond, Tez Johnson. They can still pick up some solid, and there's names I didn't name, they can still pick up some solid wide receivers in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round to help out Bo Nix because they found their quarterback. So
absolutely, and I think that the Saints are going to be desperate to try to leapfrog the Steelers because, all the noise coming out is the Steelers have been evaluating these quarterbacks heavily.
Yeah, because they're still in a need. Do you want me to go with my 21st pick?
I think it's looking that way.
All right. So now that the Saints stole Sheduer from Pittsburgh, I think right here they need a quarterback. Is Aaron Rodgers going to be their quarterback? I don't know. Right now they just have Mason Rudolph is looking like their starter. Is Mike Tomlinson going to work with Aaron? I don't know. Nobody knows. Ownership is going to pressure some of those guys to pick up a quarterback because they need one. I think they go with Jackson Dart here.
Bold take. I don't hate it though.
I mean, what do you want us to do? Us analysts is they don't have a quarterback really right now. I like Mason Rudolph. He's an OSU guy, but I don't think he's a great starter for them. They went out and got DK Metcalf. They have Freiermuth, and they have George Pickens, who I think is severely underrated. I think he's an incredible athlete, and he's an incredible catcher. So, they have some great guys. They need somebody to throw them the ball. Do I think Aaron? Potentially. Mason Rudolph? I mean, maybe he can. Jackson Dart, maybe. This is a difficult spot for Pittsburgh to be in right now.
And, I have Jackson Dart rated higher than Sheduer Sanders. I think Jackson Dart has some physical traits that can show up in the league. And I think for the Steelers right here at pick 21, they're again where I call no man's land in the league. They're good enough to be the 6th seed, get into the wild card round, and then lose early. But that's Mike Tomlin. He is Mr. Consistent. He makes what he has to work with on defense, and he's trying to maximize what he can do on offense. Arthur Smith is the OC. What he needs is a cerebral quarterback that shows a little bit of athleticism. What I mean by that is it's Jackson Dart. He screams to me what Ryan Tannehill was coming out of college. Ryan Tannehill at age 34 and 35 had a career season in Arthur Smith's offense because he was able to make a quick decision based off of a great run game, run play action game, and make the quick, easy, intermediate throws. That's what Jackson Dart was asked to do in Lane Kiffin's offense. Lane Kiffin's offense is built off of the intermediate crosser and the RPO. And if you turn on Jackson Dart's tape, the quick decisions where it's easy one half field reads, he makes them quick and he's able to layer a throw over the middle. And it's the same kind of rise you saw with J.J. McCarthy last season. I know you're not high on that guy with the Vikes. Maybe it's because you're a Packers fan. I don't know. But what I do think with Jackson Dart, what he can give the Steelers is what Arthur Smith is looking for. And I wouldn't be shocked if Sheduer isn't even taken, and at 21, the Steelers go with the guy from Ole Miss.
Amazing. I think that's a great take right there. Who are you going with the 22nd with the Chargers?
You know, kind of looking at the Chargers and the needs that they have, I don't think offensively that there is just a ton of needs that they're dying for there, but I do like some of the players on the board there that could fit in there. I'm looking at Matthew Golden, just his fall end. I would have loved Colston Loveland if he fell down here, but he's taken earlier than expected. They go interior with that guy from North Dakota State, Grace Abel. But where I think is they're going to make an unsexy pick, it's one that screams hardball, and it's going to be a massive gap plug, Derek Harmon from the University of Oregon.
If I was a Chargers fan, and now that I know what Jim Harbaugh does, this is a great pick. I mean, remember last year when he went Joe Alt with the first pick? They were like, who is Justin Herbert going to throw to? Nobody. And look what they did. They ended up putting up a great season, made the playoffs. When they got in the playoffs, it showed them what they're lacking at, and I think right here is a fantastic pick.
Yeah, Derek Harmon, he just screams to me a big physical guy with high motor, great player. He screams the way Harbaugh wants to play defense. He fits into their 3-4 system. I think he can play nose or end for them. I think he'll make up and cover up some of the run defense that Joey Bosa provided off the edge with him leaving and departing in free agency. And I just think it's an unsexy hardball pick that's going to make the team better. And it kind of how you talked about earlier with the wide receiver class, you're going to turn around at the end of the second round. I still think there's going to be some guys that they can take and fit in for, Justin Herbert to throw the football to.
Yeah, I mean, Derek Harmon, a guy that big, he can move so quick. I mean, I was watching some film on him. I forget who they were playing, but they ran a screenplay. The screenplay broke down. The offensive lineman all moved out of the way, so it's just him and the quarterback and the sideline. And he moved so quick. He covered like 10 yards in a second, it felt like, and gets some pressure on the quarterback and makes him throw it out of bounds. That speed is incredible for his size. I think he's going to be able to move the trenches as a Charger. I think they help Khalil Mack. They fill kind of a hole. I know he's not an edge, but they kind of fill a hole in the defensive line with Joey Bosa being out.
Yeah, so now we get to go to your team, the Green Bay Packers. Represent, shout out. Who are you going to take?
Man, I honestly don't know who to pick here. The Packers rank, I think there was a stat that came out, some news that the Packers in the last decade have had the worst drafts, and I believe that. I mean, going back to 1989 with Tony Mandrich. I mean, we just have bad luck with the first-round picks and draft picks. It scares me so much what we do here.
Except quarterback. You draft Hall of Famers at quarterback, so.
That's the only thing we can do, it looks like, which is very nice. I'm very thankful for that. I see that people are saying cornerback, tackle, edge, defensive tackle. The only thing I agree there is cornerback. We're kind of in a no-man's land, I feel like, for cornerback. But I'm still going to go with one. I think the next best one off the board is Maxwell Hairston out of Kentucky. The dude has blazing fast speed. I think he can really help us out in the secondary. Am I in love with the pick? Not yet. But I think time will tell with this. We really need a cornerback. Our secondary kind of killed us. And people are saying we need an edge rusher and a D-tackle. I don't think so. I mean, we picked Luke Van Ness, and I don't love Luke Van Ness, but I think he's coming into his own. Defensive tackle, we got plenty of guys there. I I think we just got to work with the guys that we have. And then offensive tackle, I don't really understand it. I feel like we got we had a rookie that was injured last year. He's going to be back. We got Aaron Banks, which I'm so hyped for. And then we got Zach Tom and Rasheed Walker. I think our offensive line is going to be fine.
Yeah, I honestly would have loved if y'all went wide receiver here. I know you got some young ones that you like, but where's your true number one? Where's the guy that Jordan Love and a bench can throw it up to? But I like that you went Maxwell Harrison. He is, like you said, blazing fast. He comes from an aggressive style defense from Mark Stoops' defense at Kentucky. And it's the same style of defense that, they run up for the Packers. So I had Trey Amos higher than Maxwell Harrison, but I don't hate it. I think that they're a close type of player. But you seem kind of like you disagree with the wide receiver, so you tell me how I'm wrong.
I want to talk about wide receiver. It's just that right now I'm looking at the board and I see Matthew Golden, Ohio State. I like Luther Burden, and I just wanted to say this for the record. If they pick Luther Burden here, I'm not going to be angry at all. I like his size. We have like Jaden Reed, Romeo Dobbs, Dontavian Wicks. Those guys are all kind of like under 6'1", I'm pretty sure. We have Christian Watson, but he just tore his ACL. I think Luther Burden is the guy that we go for right here. He's tall. He was the number one recruit coming out of high school, went to Mizzou. He's put up pretty good numbers. I mean, Mizzou hasn't been great, but I think he's done pretty well. If we go Luther Burden, the third here, I'm not going to be mad.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate it either. I mean, but the deal with me with Luther Burden, why I think he's falling, is a lot of them are seeing him as, and I hate to put it on his name because I want him to prove it wrong, but they see him as a poor man's Deebo Samuel, just the same physical type of receiver, doesn't separate as much as you would like, and they question his speed. But I think he's a dynamic player, and I think it'll be interesting to see what the Packers do.
All right, man. Hey, who are you going to do we're going to stay in the NFC North. What are you going to do here in Minnesota?
So Minnesota, I think all of their needs are on defense. It's going to come down to them if is J.J. McCarthy the guy. And if you decide he's the guy, your offense is pretty much set. They could use an interior guard maybe, but I, again, think that that's not as much of a need as defense is. And really, I'm looking at Harrison Smith is getting much older. There's rumors he might retire. They don't really have a quarterback number one. I think it was a lot of they had a 34-year-old Stephon Gilmore as their CB1 that's now a free agent, might be signing with Dallas. And I'm looking at the secondary, and they need to find some sort of flag hole player that they can build a secondary around. And for me, my number one safety is Malachi Starks out of Georgia.
Yeah, Starks is my number one safety as well. The dude is extremely athletic. I mean, watching film on him, the first game that stood out against Clemson, he had this like 360 corkscrew interception that was just insane. He's so physical. He's not afraid to engage with the wide receiver. The only cons that I saw was that sometimes when he's pursuing, he takes a bad angle. He's so aggressive that I think it gets into his mind, and he sometimes has a little bit of poor judgment. And on that interception that I talked about, if you notice, he's behind the wide receiver, which as a safety, you want to be the last blanket of defense. And if he keeps on playing so aggressive, I think that might be why he slid down here a little bit, because I think he's a little too aggressive. But that's something that you can't hate as a defensive coordinator.
For me, watching his tape, he reminded me of Jamal Adams from way back when in 2018. Jamal Adams is he was a 6th overall pick. I'm not saying that Malachi Starks is going to be Jamal Adams right out of the gate, but his physicality, being able to play at the line of scrimmage and being very aggressive, jumping balls, pressing wide receivers to the line of scrimmage, I just think that he's an exciting player that fits what Brian Flores' brand of defense is, which is 1-800, I go fast, I'm going to be aggressive, I'm going to line up 8-9 guys on the line and then drop a bunch of them into coverage. And I just think he's a player that Brian Flores would love to have. He can flex him, play him down in the box, play him rangy as a rover in the middle of the field, playing a little bit of it nickel. And I think it's a chess piece that the Vikings are looking for with this pick. Well, who do you have the Texans taking with the 25th pick?
Look, I think some people are going to be screaming, go with the wide receiver here. I still don't think they should go there. The Texans have blaring issues with the line. You got to protect C.J. Stroud. They lost Stephon Diggs, and Tank Dell's probably going to be out for the entire year, I'm pretty sure. So they need a wide receiver. They can get a wide receiver in the second, third, fourth, fifth. I think right here you gotta go Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. You gotta protect CJ. We gotta try as hard as we can to give him time in the pocket. Let's take the Chargers approach here. Who is he gonna throw to? He's got Nico Collins. Who else? But let's protect him so that he can at least try. All right.
Yeah, I don't hate the pick for them. I mean, Josh Simmons, he's a tackle that I've struggled with to evaluate. At times, he does some really nice things. I think he's better in the pass game than the run game. I think his run blocking is very specific, scheme specific, and he's going to go into a system that does go to his play style. He thrives off of the cutback block off a wide zone, sifting through and cutting off the backside pursuit. I could see it, him thriving in the role there for the Texans. They've got to replace Laramie Tunsil, who they traded, who I think was a good trade for what they were paying for him and the draft picks that they got. But I think a lot of people soured on Josh Simmons just because of what that guy from Marshall, Mike Green, did to him in that game. But I don't hate it, and I think that he could develop long-term into being a starter for him.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, they're another team that just needs to protect their quarterback. You gotta get best available, I'd say, right here. And I think going to a North Dakota State guy might be a little bit of a stretch here, but I don't know. He might go soon. Mason, what do you have with the 26th at the Rams?
For the Rams, I mean, with them signing Devontae Adams out of free agency, a lot of people have them going wide receiver after trading Cooper Kupp, but I wouldn't hate it if they took Matthew Golden here and did his slide. I could see them doing that, but they're probably gonna go on defense, probably gonna continue to shore the side of the ball up. I hope Sean McVay can make some magic, and I'm gonna have them taking, for me, a top 15 rated player, Jahad Campbell out of Alabama.
I knew exactly where you're going here. Look, I'm gonna be honest. I think Jalen Walker and Campbell are pretty close. I think Campbell has a little bit of speed on him, but Campbell, he's fantastic too. If you're looking for a well-balanced linebacker, which I think the Rams would be going for here, Sean McVay, that's what he speaks, well-balanced. I think Campbell's your guy to go with right here. He is still phenomenal with strength and speed. And yeah, they need to kind of fill an interior linebacker spot right here.
He's just very rangy. He shows up all over the field. In fact, in my chalk talk with Will Campbell, I actually broke down a clip of him off the edge rushing against Will Campbell, and that's what I think he provides in their system, is that they can line him up as a 3-4 edge. They can line him up at Mike and have him cover a tight end or a slot in a pinch. And I think, again, what he provides is a crazy uber athlete in the middle of that defense, and it's going to allow him to play fast and play loose, which is what his strengths align with. So,
and I agree with it.
Yeah. Well, who do you have the Ravens picking with the 27th pick?
Man, I don't know if you're going to think this is crazy, but I think a good pair with the pretty legendary, pretty good Kyle Hamilton would be the South Carolina safety, Nick Emmanwori. The guy's a dog. I think he is the number one. I don't know. It's really close between him and Starks. I mean, this guy's got, again, blazing speed, great in coverage, great in blitz. South Carolina had a pretty good defense last year.
Yeah.
And this is one of the guys I think really headstrong the defense from the safety position, which is crazy. Usually it's a linebacker. But I think the Ravens, they could use maybe an edge. They can maybe use a guard to help with Lamar, try to keep him scrambling. Right here, though, I think they go with Nick.
Well, this is a team one catch away in overtime from knocking off the Chiefs and moving on. So, I mean, I think that, they don't really have a lot of needs out there. But taking Nick Emmanwori, what it allows them to do is make up for what I think was the free agency miss with Marcus Williams. I don't think it's been what they wanted for the middle of their defense. They want Kyle Hamilton to kind of be in that Ed Reed type role for them, of playing closer to the box, on their tight ends, playing that lock combo covers they like to play. And I think that they're wanting a center fielder, deep middle third guy for their defense. So I think Nick Emmanwori fits that for them. I love the pick. I don't know, but I think it's how our draft board's shaken out. I don't know how on Thursday when the clock is on if Nick will be there at 27, but if he is, I think that they've got to just take him and be happy with it.
100%. 100%. Hey, what's Detroit going to do here?
Detroit at pick 28. With the way this draft board's fallen, going into it, I thought they'd be taking, an edge player here. I thought maybe Shamar Stewart's fall could have been a lot higher than what it was at 17. I thought maybe a secondary player could be there. I could see Gray Zabel, but with the draft rumors coming out, they might trade Jameson Williams. They're unhappy with them. Don't know if they want to pay him a big second contract.
It's rumored about that, yeah.
And I'm looking and seeing here that Matthew Golden's fallen all the way down to pick 15. I'm going to take the pick here and have Matthew Golden going to the Lions.
Yeah, and I think that Jameson Williams trade is not crazy. And if they do that, even if they don't, I still think Matthew Golden's good here. The guy's incredibly fast, incredibly talented. The thing why I think he slid is because he doesn't have the size as the other wide receivers that have gone first, and that's why. Jaden Higgins is 6'4", yeah, way bigger than I thought. So these guys, that's why they went first. Matthew Golden is going to go. I could see him going next. I think he's the 3. And I think the Lions try to get Jared Goff to throw it a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just look at it and look at how the board fell. It's maybe just a best player available pick here. It's not necessarily what they need. It's what they could need 2-3 years down the road, which is what you got to look at when you draft in the first round. NFL teams, they always have 2 or 3 year roadmaps. They're having to plan a salary cap. They're having to plan how they're going to pay guys. And Jameson Williams has kind of been a disappointment. They picked him 12 overall. They traded up for him. He hasn't really produced. He's dealt with some off-the-field issues. He's been suspended. And if they end up trading him, I think Matthew Golden fits right in. He's 5'10", 180 pounds. He has shown he could separate vertically for a deep home run threat. He's maybe not having elite speed, but he's a clinician in running routes. And I think the way the board fell, if they were sitting here and Matthew Golden was there, I feel like it'd be a hard time for them to pass up on him. And I think it would open up the pass game for Jared Goff. So who are you going to take with the 29th pick?
Man, I'm torn here. I'm torn between 2 guys. Washington, I'm so happy for them. Finally, they can have a good season. They got rid of their owner, who wasn't very great, and they had a great season. What are the odds? I really like Jaden Daniels. I like Scary Terry. I think, their offense is so high-powered. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think they go towards the defense with this first pick, and I'm torn between 2 edge rushers that I really like. James Pierce Jr. and the edge rusher out of Boston College. I'm not even going to try his last name, but Donovan. Donovan he was the second in FBS sacks last season. He had 16.5. He was half away from tying the guy that went, where is he, Mike Green, at 16. So I think you're getting some great value right here going with Donovan over James, and I want to explain why. I think Donovan is the right choice here because James, he looks fantastic. He's tall. He's 6'5". I just feel like he lacks a little bit of mass, strength, some pounds for an edge rusher. He uses great leverage, don't get me wrong, but I think with this class right here, I think Donovan just has a little bit of edge on him, and I think that's why Washington goes with him.
So Donovan Zairuka, who he reminds me of? He reminds me of the same defensive lineman from way back when the Lions took. That was a shocker that rose really highly. Ziggy Ansah. Big athletic freak that's learning how to play football still. He might not have the ideal size that you want, but he has crazy physical traits. And I like the pick. I think it fits Dan Quinn's defense. It's the style of pass rusher that he likes. I think he'll complement well with what he's trying to do out there. And if you went James Pierce here or, Donovan fell a little farther into the second round, it's not crazy because right now, really you got to treat that these teams are picking like it's the second round. That's what their grades are. That's the way this draft's falling, and there's not a lot of separation between these players right now. But I do think he offers a physical trait here that's special for the Commanders, and I like the pick.
Hey, Ted Hendricks award winner, nation's top defensive end. He beat out Mike Green, and then ACC Defensive Player of the Year, and then second in sacks in the FBS. So I think that's some great awards and accolades to go around him. I think Washington likes this pick right here.
Yeah.
Where are you going with the Bills, man?
I'm going to my corner number, I think 3 is where I had him rated. You took my 4th guy over him, but I'm going Trey Amos for the Bills. What I think he provides is, someone you can plug in and start immediately, is opposite of Christian Bedford. They paid him a massive contract extension, but Tre'Davious White, their top 10 pick, they paid a bunch of money to. With his injury history, he left and departed in free agency. I think for me, Trey Amos makes perfect sense for what Sean is trying to build on defense for them, and I think with the way the draft board's fallen, him getting them at pick 30 is a great pick.
Yeah, and Buffalo's such a good team. Who do they need to pick right here? I don't know. I mean, cornerback, yeah, defensive tackle. I mean, their offense, maybe you could argue that they could use a wide receiver still. But no, cornerback Trey Amos is good here, and you could probably flip Trey and Hairston at the same spot. But Trey, no, he's 6'1". That's some good size on him. He definitely played some great SEC wide receivers. I think he's got some good experience under his belt, and I think the Bills, they're, like you said, they're picking basically like the second round right now, so I think this is a fine pick.
Yeah, he plays with really strong hands. The way that he likes to play defense. Sean McDermott, it's it's press bail into zone coverage, and that punch that he can give right off the edge, that bail into his deep third. I like it. I think it fits what they're trying to do on defense, and I think they'll come away happy with this pick. So, who do you have? The Chiefs, Super Bowl runner-ups. Thank God. Who do you have them drafted with the 31st pick?
Let me ask you this: what was the clearest thing that stood out to you of why they did not beat the Eagles?
Because Taylor Swift's devil magic finally ran out.
Or maybe because Patrick Mahomes is running for his life.
That too, maybe so. Maybe because their offensive line, some of them were overpaid, some of them are aging, and they trade away Joe Thuney because because of the way that he played in that Super Bowl.
Yeah, so right here, let's fill in those gaps that they had. This was the same reason why they lost in against the Bucs in 2020, the offensive line. Patrick Mahomes was scrambling for his life. You can have as good as wide receivers as you want and as good as talent as you want as quarterback. If you have 5 guys in your face when you just snap the ball, you can't do much with that. So I think right here, I think this is your guy. I'm not too sure, but I think this is your guy. I'm going to go with Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State.
Hell yeah. Mauler in the run game. He's coming from a pro-style offense. He is great in zone and gap scheme. He's going to fit exactly what Andy Reid loves to run, which is a gap scheme based off of power and counter and G-kick and pin and pull. He's going to fit exactly what they want to do. He is a technician in the pass game. It might be what some people say is the downside that he played in FCS football, so he's not facing some of the elite creatures he will in the league. But I think he fits exactly what Andy Reid's trying to do on offense, and I think it's a great pick.
What stood out to me when I was watching film on him, I mean, he was high on your draft board, I believe, and so that's why I really researched into him. His legs just seem so strong. I mean, just the way when he's in that stance. And then a lot of the film I saw was him running down the field for like 20 yards on a run offense. He's definitely a guy you'd want on the team. Great locker room guy, it looks like. Somebody that's going to fire up that offense. And I think he's a great protector for the pass. So that's why in the Chiefs, it's obvious they go with a lineman here.
Yeah.
Hey, Super Bowl champs. Who you got, Coach?
Well, Super Bowl champs, the Eagles. I love the players on their roster. I hate the Eagles. I'm a Cowboys fan. I can't be too excited for them. But embarrassment of riches. Howie Roseman has done the best of his job for the longest time now. And what I love is really what they do with the salary cap. They just re-signed their center for 4 years, $68 million, and you're like, where are they getting all this money? But what they're doing is they're pushing all sorts of future money to the year 2029 when the CBA is up the TV rights deals are up, and there's going to be a massive increase in the salary cap. And I just love how they plan for the future with the positions they take, how they draft. And I think rounding out this draft, just kind of looking, at their needs and what's available here. I'm looking at, a defensive lineman like Kenneth Grant, Nick Scowerton, James Pierce. Do they want to replace Milton Williams that left in a massive contract in free agency? Do they want to replace Josh Sweat off the edge? And there are other really great defensive linemen that retired, Brandon Graham. I don't know where they'll go here. I think they'll take a defensive lineman. It's whatever flavor that you want. But for me, watching the tape, who I like the most, just because of the competition he played in, physical traits he has, I'm going to go James Pierce out of Tennessee.
Man, I thought you were going to go Kenneth Grant right there.
I talked him up, didn't I? Man, I wanted to. I liked him, but I just couldn't justify it with the way that the board fell.
Yeah, I think that's a bad pick. I mean, the only reason I didn't think he fit with Washington is just because I think he's going to drop a little more. I think he's just a tad bit undersized, and in the NFL, it's a game of inches, so everything is needed, and I think he lacks. But don't get me wrong, he's still a phenomenal athlete. But he has such long arms. He can, maybe that's why he can get by with being a little lighter. He's so quick too.
I just think he plays with length, but I hear you, because his physical size is a question. I think that's why he's dropped all the way into the first round.
Yeah, and the Eagles, they can afford a pick like this. Where does it really help them on day one? Super Bowl champs, that's always nice to have. You want to nail every draft pick, but they're in a position where their team is pretty stacked. And some places they need help in the secondary and the cornerback, and I don't think so. I think that's crazy. So you're going with the edge, a defensive lineman. Yeah, I think that's a smart move.
That kind of rounds out, the first round of our mock draft. And, I think there's some surprises here. I think that there's some stuff that the community's not really talking about that's out there that's in the draft. I think you go in Tyler Warren at pick 7, Jaden Higgins at 18, having that trade up with Sheduer Sanders, and then kind of later in the draft with the Green Bay Packers going Maxwell Hairston. And I think that there's a lot of players that are in the second round that you might see a lot of draft day trades quickly going for those wide receivers, which I know you like the depth in the wide receiver class.
Oh, yeah, I love the wide receiver depth right now. I think it's, and I might argue, I would definitely try to argue against a brick wall that this might be a better class throughout than we've seen in previous years. And I'm talking about the years when there's been Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. You might think that's crazy, but I'd like to argue it. I think we got great guys, and Mason, you don't agree with me on this, but ESPN has the 30th ranked wide receiver in this class is Nick Nash, the Triple Crown winner out of San Jose State. So in my opinion, I just feel that tells you the depth of the wide receiver in this draft. You got Tez Johnson, Isaiah Bond still, Luther Burden still. You got
Abuka still is on the board,
Yeah, I know, insane. But what I want to note is that we have 6 edge rushers in the first round. And if I was to only listen to ESPN, I didn't even know edge rushers were in the class. All they talk about is Sheduer, Jackson, and Cam. So I think we bring a really good side to this. I think the edge rusher on defense is almost becoming the most important spot. Who's the most important player on the field? The quarterback. All right, well, the defenders, you got to stop those guys at all times. So is the edge rusher going to become the most important part on the field? On defense, yeah, maybe we're seeing that in the NFL. I think I'm excited to see that 15, 16, 17 pick in the NFL draft on Thursday. Are they really going to go edge rusher there?
Edge. You can see it happen. Yeah. I think you're onto something there. If you look, because you can follow the money, and that's where you find the value. Money equals value with the contracts. And in the league, quarterbacks make the most money, but then it's who's the highest non-paid quarterback, and it's guys that rush the passer. And then right after them, it's the guys that protect the passer and offensive tackle. And so, I think you've hit it on the head, and it kind of the way our draft reflects it. It's quarterback, edge rusher, guy that protects them. So, it's going to be really interesting to see the way the draft shakes out. I think there's going to be some surprises that a lot of people aren't expecting. because it's not a traditional draft. It's not your traditional flashy stars. It's
The quarterbacks.
the crazy whiteout ones like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, etc. You don't have just the crazy, flashy, like there's some really good, solid technician, good defensive players that are going to show up. But you don't just have a crazy generational, Myles Garrett going to be the number one pick no matter what. Like, I think that there's going to be some variety that happens in the draft. I think there's going to be some stuff that shakes up, and I'm excited to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I think this first round draft is going to be as exciting as other years. The depth is a lot of people are questioning, but just because there aren't 7 quarterbacks going in the first round doesn't mean it's going to not be a good draft. I mean, yeah, looking at last year, 6 quarterbacks in the first 12, that was pretty exciting, and a lot of those quarterbacks turned out pretty well. I could honestly see where Cam Ward is the only quarterback taken on day one.
Yeah,
I would not be surprised if that happens. So I think this draft is not going to be what most people think, and I am totally fine with that. I mean, I think the best player of the draft is Abdul Carter, not a quarterback, not even an offensive player, not a guy who's going to hardly touch the ball most days. And so I don't know if a lot of people are prepared to talk about that, but it's still going to be exciting.
absolutely. I mean, just kind of looking back at the draft, I'm going to say probably my favorite pick, and it's a pick you took, was at 9, Armand Nimbu for the Saints. I just think them not forcing a quarterback there, them taking a top offensive lineman blindside protector that's going to solidify that unit for them. I love the fit and the pick there, and I think that's the highlight pick of this mock.
Sure, and I mean, your trade up there that you suggested, I mean, the Saints have 6 picks in the first 130, right? So that's like, I think that's 2 in round 4, 2 in round 3, 2 in round 2. So, they might have that, they might say, like, look at all these picks we got. Why don't we trade like 2 or 3 of them and try to get this one right in front of the Steelers and pick Sheduer? So, I would not be surprised with that. And the Saints, if they go in the first round and get offensive lineman quarterback, that seems pretty all right with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, I hope that you enjoyed that mock draft with my buddy Liam Carr and the first episode of the War Room podcast presented by the Sideline Journal. I look forward to hearing your comments and discussing and seeing the lead up to the draft. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you for the next episode. Peace out.